Hey guys, and welcome to episode 117 of Meeple to Meeple. It is a Midwest Meeple mania. What is going on? Well, today I've got a guest in-house with me, so if you're not watching, you will only be listening, but if you can, you'll see sitting right next to me. As always, I remain PJ, and with me today is the incomparable Shelly.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
No, this is great. This is exciting because I've only ever, you asked me just before we started, how many times I've done this with a live audience and or with a live person, and I've only ever done it once with Gareth sitting right next to me. That's episode 75. You should go check it out. It was right after Cajun Con last year. So thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So now I gotta figure out how to do this. I have a guest sitting next to me. This is exciting. So you and your husband and your daughter came spend the weekend with us at our house.
Yeah, we've only been talking about doing this for 2 years now. So we made it happen.
Yeah.
It's happening.
It is truly exciting. So Shelly is from, you're from Michigan?
Yeah. Southwest Michigan.
You're from Michigan. You live in Michigan. I live in Illinois. And so for our international guests or non-American guests, that's the section of the country called the Midwest, hence the Midwest Meeple Mania.
I love it.
It sounds so much more exciting than it really is, guys. I'm telling you.
A lot of flat countryside, a lot of cornfields and
Exactly. So there's nothing else to do but to play board games.
Yes.
We were just doing a rundown. I figured this is a good place to start. What have we been playing this week? What have we played in the past 48 hours?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a short list going into the weekend, and we're knocking some of them out. Mostly playing games from your collection. All of them so far, right?
So far.
So yeah, we just played Mille Fiori.
Yep.
And we've played Nar. And what else? I'm terrible at. Gutenberg.
That's right.
Is one in our collection that we haven't played yet. So I was excited to get a chance to be taught the game.
Right.
Not have to learn it myself. So
last night we played Mennefer.
Yeah, that was
which
awesome.
I've talked a lot about on the podcast. Yeah. Love that game. It's amazing. And now you know why it's so cool.
It's really good.
Right?
Yeah, a lot of theme for a going up tracks kind of Euro game. So
yes.
Yeah, I was excited.
And now you know that when I talk about my wife on the podcast, you got to experience masterful levels of teaching a game.
Yeah, some of the smoothest and most effortless teaching that I've ever seen. And I've been playing games for a long time. So yeah, that's always really nice to have somebody who's really comfortable teaching.
So I want to, I'm hoping one of our friends, Kristen Mott, game designer, also a Midwesterner herself, if she's listening to this, she's planning on having me teach a bunch of games. I'm not the teacher in the house. Katie is. So
I'm not either. My husband's a teacher, high school math teacher. So yeah, I'm not a teacher. I don't come by it honest. I have learned over time to teach some, but I don't as a rule.
But of course, not to disappoint all of you listeners out there, we did start the weekend.
Drum roll, please.
With Obsession.
Yes.
So you got to play.
Would it have been a mini Cajun Con if we hadn't started with Obsession?
No, I think there are two games. Now that we've actually had a real Cajun Con, there are two games that absolutely have to hit the table to call it a Cajun Con. Whether it's mini, whether it's Midwest, whether it's in England, it doesn't matter. And I think that is Obsession and Kavango, which is on the list.
Yep.
Which is on the list. And you could see it on the wall behind me. So, hey, thank you to Matt and Zara, who gave us a second copy just so I can hang an empty box on my wall.
It's really next level, relationship
for art. Well, they hear me say this all the time. They're just some of the most delightful human beings. And then they make a really great game that hopefully later on you'll get to experience before you leave for the weekend.
Yeah, that's definitely on the list too. I've heard you talk so much about that one.
So
we also we did not say that we also played Nana. That's the only one from my collection we played so far, which is just a little memory game that was all the rage in my local group, over the last year or two. So
explain a little bit more about Nana. I had never played it before. It's based off the Japanese number 7,
yeah,
right?
Nana means 7 in Japanese. So it's basically like a memory match game, except that you have numbers 1 through 12, and there are 3 of each number instead of 2. And every player has a number of cards in their hand, and then the rest of the cards that you're playing with are on the table between the people. You order the cards in your hand in ascending order, and you're trying to find the cards by asking the other players or looking at the cards in the middle of the table. But you can only ask for the highest or lowest card in another player's hand, or reveal from your hand the highest or lowest cards. So you're kind of working your way into the middle. And then, it's just the first person to find 3 sets of 3 cards, or if you happen to find 2 sets of cards that are added or subtracted together to equal 7. So like if I find the 1s and the 6s, then I win with only 2 sets. Or if you find the 7s, which are really difficult because they're locked in the middle of everybody's hand, then you win right away with the 7s.
This game is absolutely insane. I think it broke my brain. I was like, I understood the words that came out of your mouth when you were explaining the rules, but I'm like, what? What? Yeah.
We were like a few hands in, and you still were like not quite there. Your wife picked it up right away, and she was
that is because I'm married, probably the smartest woman ever. So because I'm that much of an idiot, I had to marry up. So so we played it twice. Yes. And you even commented in our first play that no one had made a set. No one, like, I guess typically someone gets a set relatively quickly.
Yeah, you'll find a pair pretty early on, and then you're able to find the third. But no, I think we saw about one of every number before we made our first set.
I think that's because my idiocy was infectious, and I infected everyone at the table.
I think they were just really well shuffled.
Oh, that's a good answer. That's a great answer.
That game, for those of you in the US too, this is a little bit difficult to find the Japanese version of Nana if you haven't heard of it before, but it's easier to find under the name Trio. That is also the same game. It's just a different
publisher.
I can't think of who.
Don't know off the top of my head, but that is Trio. If you're looking for it, it's worth it. It's a lot of fun.
It's silly.
It's not meant to be heavy.
Yeah, no.
So before you arrived, you had sent me a short list of games that you were like,
it's a short list, but it
was a short, guys, it was a short list. But I want to read this list to you. There were 6 games that she was hoping we would teach or play. There's technically 7 because I added Obsession and said we had to play that first. Yes. And so we did. Men Nefer, check, we played that. Mille Fiori, check, we played that. Kavango, hopefully we'll play that this evening.
Yeah.
Civolution, yeah. So that's like the entire day right there. We couldn't afford the entire day.
Maybe not going to happen.
And then Minos, Dawn of the Bronze Age, which we have not yet had an opportunity to play that. But hopefully we will. I did promise Shelly, we will bring out Civolution, at least kind of do a little demo, a Meeple to Meeple demo of Civolution.
I love it. So we're 3 for 6, and it's a short weekend. So, we'll see what we can get to.
It's fine. So I wanted to talk about the community. How do I want to say this? It's very unique. The situation, is it like in my mind, I envision southwestern Michigan to be kind of a board game desert.
Yeah, I mean, so I lived in a really small rural town in southwest Michigan, but I had a group of 3 or 4 people that I played with pretty regularly. But we moved a little closer to Lake Michigan, and the friends that we played with also moved at the same time. So we didn't really know anybody in the town that we were moving to. And desert or not, people have actually kind of come out of the woodwork, and there are more people around who play board games than you might think at first glance. But we definitely felt kind of alone when we moved to our new town.
So to be clear, what I mean by board game desert is this: there's not board game cafes and local game stores. It's a desert in terms there's a lack of businesses.
Sure.
Because you kind of created a whole community of board gamers.
I did.
You did?
I did.
She did.
I did. And I am, maybe not the most extroverted person you'll ever meet. So it was really for a love of board games and really wanting to find some people to play with. So it was kind of a selfish endeavor in the first place. But yeah, we have one local game store that has a once a month board game night.
Okay.
And then there's another one maybe 40 minutes south of us. I mean, there's really not a lot, and definitely no board game cafes. And, sometimes you'll find a game night at a library or something like that, but was moving to the area and I wanted to find something.
But what's interesting is that you had more grandiose plans initially, didn't you?
I did. I was kind of burned out. I worked in healthcare through COVID, and I was really kind of burned out and kind of looking for what comes next for me. And we had just moved. So I had in the back of my head, maybe I'll make this group, right? And then what if I turned it into like a game library that we could rent out games? Or what if I eventually turned it into a board game cafe, right? Wouldn't that be cool? So that was kind of the thought in the back of my head. Like, maybe I'll start this community.
Right.
And then once I have all of this buy-in from the community, maybe I'll turn it into something else.
And instead, you turned it into a magical, mystical Michigan kingdom of board gamers.
Yeah.
And you like that alliteration?
I kind of liked it.
Yeah, every now and then.
We were talking alliteration before we started.
So now you've got this you created this whole community of board gamers, and you partnered with a local brewery.
Yeah, it started there. So I started like an Instagram so that I could talk a little bit on there about games I had been playing. And I just basically followed every local business that I could. Also made a Facebook page, but I just followed different local businesses and kind of talked about wanting to find somewhere to get together to play games. And that was the first venue that reached out, was a local brewery a few minutes from our house, and just said, Tuesday nights is our quietest night of the week, so why don't you come in and give us some business? And
That's awesome.
Yeah, we've been going there faithfully for like 3 years now. So
we're the owners of this is the livery?
No, we do
this is not
delivery too, but the first one that we and our longest standing venue is called Watermark Brewing in Stevensville, Michigan.
And so the owners of Watermark, are they gamers and that's why they gravitated toward it, or
not necessarily, but they are really involved in the community. So they do lots of different things. Like they have a bingo night, they have an event space. We don't actually use their event space. That's more of a formal space for like weddings and stuff like that. They just opened an indoor golf center. They do a lot of community projects. They do a big like a polar plunge every year to raise a bunch of money. So they just do lots of like fun stuff that brings out a really small community. And I think this was just kind of another thing. One of the guys does like games, but he's literally never come out for, like, and sat down and played games.
Of course he hasn't.
I mean, he's, running a brewery instead, but yeah, I mean, I think they just like to invite different kinds of people, and they wanted to make a space for us.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is great. Yeah. So what about if anyone who's listening and they live in, I know that there are some of our friends, both the content creators and just listeners of the podcast, who live in really rural, kind of isolated areas. And we're thinking about doing something similar, partnering with a brewery, partnering with some local business that can support the space. What are some lessons learned? And follow-up question to that is, I'm really interested in partnering with a brewery because drinking beer and playing a board game does go well, but I'm just worried about the board games getting ruined or losing pieces. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that part, to put your fears aside, we've had probably close over 100 events. I'm not sure how many, but maybe closer to 150 events in the 3 years since I started. And we have literally only spilled one beer on a game. We spilled beer on Dixit, and we wiped down all the cards with a wet rag. They were not sleeved or anything, and we still own the same game of Dixit, and it works just fine after.
That is great.
I know. It's not as scary as people try to make it sound. So, not as big of a deal as you think. And it's a really nice kind of casual environment.
Right.
Yeah. So I do like that venue, and whether drinkers or non-drinkers of alcohol,
right.
I would say our group is about 50-50 actually. A lot of them come out and don't drink at all. So it hasn't seemed to scare people away in the way that I was maybe worried about in the first place.
So there's not like the beer garden or the brewery, wherever the venue is, they don't require like a 1 drink minimum or anything.
No, they haven't. And actually we've played in, 5 or 6 different breweries or restaurants in the area, and nobody has ever required anything of us.
Oh, that's good.
For what it's worth. That's so good. Yeah. And we actually have kind of gone through different iterations of requesting that different venues, when we are getting a good kind of group of people coming out, 20, 25 people sometimes for these events, asking for a small donation to the group fund. I'm not monetizing for my own pocket necessarily, and we're not generating so much money for the business that I feel like we can charge by the hour or something like that.
Right.
But that was kind of a nice, a little bit of seed money so that we could use it for different things that we needed for the group. Like I've bought some lights so that we have better lighting for the events, or, different things like that.
You posted about those lights, right? These are the tabletop.
I did. Yeah.
That's not, I'm not trying to call you out. I think that's really cool. And someone else might tell me about those lights, because we talked a little bit about them. Was it last night we were playing Men Nefer?
I think so. Yeah.
And we somehow it came up about the lighting.
Yeah, they're kind of life changing. Once you start playing with a small task light for a board game, it's just better. You just can see so much better. But no, one of the venues that we play at is really dark, and just doesn't have adequate lighting for playing board games. So
because it's not designed for that kind of activity.
Exactly. Yeah. So we just kind of improvised, and we bought task lights on Amazon that are kind of weighted at the bottom, and they have USB plug-in so you can recharge them. And they work very well. They've been a real hit.
So what are some were there, because there may not have been, it sounds like this was a pretty smooth kind of process, but were there any pitfalls, or again, if anyone were thinking about doing it, is there something they should be wary of, or don't assume this, or any lessons that you can take away from the early stages?
Sure. I would say 2 things that come to mind are not going into it expecting to turn it into your job, right? I have not really found a way, and maybe my heart is not in it at this point, to find a way to turn it into like a side hustle or anything like that. Different places are not necessarily willing to pay you the kind of money that you would kind of hope if you were doing it as, it needs to be a pet project, and it needs to be something that you're okay with doing without any monetary reward. It needs to be it needs to be your your life's work instead.
How many people show up on an average night?
It varies quite a bit. I would say the minimum is like maybe 8 people, but it's not unheard of for us to have 20 or 25 people.
That's pretty solid.
It's a decent group. I would say like 15 is an average night. So we usually have 3 or 4 tables going, and
that's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. I love that. I love that. So I was thinking about circling back to Dixit. One of our friends,
poor Dixit.
One of our friends over in England, Craig, get into games. They do something at New Year's. They play what they call Dirty Dixit with the adults after the kids go to bed, or it's unclear, but it's like a New Year's Eve tradition. I'm thinking he's really going to love the idea that drunken Dirty Dixit, because and he's probably going to want to play with your copy because your copy has had a few drinks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, fair. So I can send that along if that's what he's looking for. A slightly sticky copy of Dixit.
He's going to love that.
That's a great joke in more than one way.
That is gonna be great. That is amazing. I was thinking about, you were talking about occasionally you ask for donations. I was thinking about museums. They got like the little, not that you can afford a big glass box.
Like a tip jar.
A
yeah.
tip jar. Is it like that? And people just drop a few dollars in, or?
No. Actually, what we've asked for is a little bit of cash from the venue itself. I have never asked our attendees to pay any money.
Okay.
So
I missed that.
That is the main tenet of the group, is that I want all of the events to be free and open to the public.
Right.
So yeah.
No. What if John Doe comes in and he and his wife, or he and one of his kids, whatever, they come in, it's their first time, and they're just really excited. Either they're avid gamers and they're happy to meet other gamers, or they're new to the hobby as a whole and they're really excited and want to get into the hobby. Can they make donations? Do you have an apparatus for anything like that?
I don't, and it's never come up. I mean, if you're posting that an event is free, I don't feel like somebody's ever thought, oh, maybe I'll give her some money. I guess. Yeah. I mean, in addition to breweries, we also do events in libraries on a fairly regular basis now too, just because I did want to broaden, not everybody wants to spend an evening or an afternoon in a brewery, especially if they don't drink alcohol. So I wanted to kind of broaden that up a little bit. So especially in a library, you wouldn't think to, offer money or anything like that.
What about kids? Are there age restrictions at the beer garden? So if someone wanted to bring their kids to play games with their family, I know you play games with your daughter. Does that happen? And again, are there any age restrictions imposed by the venue?
Most of our events are early enough in the day that there's not an age restriction. I think some bars do have age restrictions, maybe on late on a Friday night or something. You need to be 18 or 21 or something like that to go in. But no, ours are mostly afternoon events or early evening. The Watermark events are at like 5 p.m. So no, kids are definitely allowed at all of the events. It's nice to know ahead of time if kids will be there, because I can, adjust what's in the bag to make sure that we've got things. But I do try to cater to the widest audience possible. So I always try to make sure to, have a huge variety of stuff in the bag.
Yeah. So do you supply the games, or is it BYOBG, or?
It's both. We always bring enough games that we feel like if nobody else brought anything, I would feel comfortable teaching all of these. I feel like I've got a variety for maybe non-gamers, newer to the hobby, younger, less experienced, or real hobby board gamers too. So
it sounds like this is an open gaming event that we would find at our gaming conventions, but it just happens to be at a coffee shop, a library, or a brewery, or something.
Exactly. Yep. And we keep it to about 4 times a month, which is no small feat, really. It's almost every weekend thing for maybe 3 or 4 hours.
There's always a post with this calendar update.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if anyone else feels this way. And sometimes I do chime in. You will post like Tuesday night here, Saturday night here. And I'm like, I want to come. I can't. Yeah. So that's really cool. And all that scheduling, that's all you, right?
It is all me. And that was the other thing that I was thinking you asked earlier about tips and tricks, and I didn't really get back to that part.
Okay.
I would say once you are kind of establishing relationships with local venues and you have places, either that have reached out to you or that you felt comfortable reaching out to ask about starting events, I would highly recommend kind of systematizing how you are posting about it so that it doesn't take up as much time as running the event itself, right? So I have when I post on Facebook, I load all of the events as duplicates of the last time that we ran that event at that venue. It has the same banner at the top of the page because I was really trying to customize that from one event to the next, and it got to be kind of too much labor, right? For, I want to spend my time doing the events themselves, and I don't want it to feel like a burden. So I've really tried to kind of streamline that process so that I'm loading up events with our venues a couple months at least ahead of time. So we'll line up maybe the next quarter worth of dates at once, or we're doing it on some sort of a regular schedule so that we're not too worried about getting in touch with them every month or every few weeks or something. It's just too much communication. It's too much trying to figure things out, right?
That's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, and just streamlining the social media part of it too, but making it easy for people to find your events.
Right.
So that's a big deal too.
Even for people not in the area, we know how to find. Like I know when you're having an event. I can just go to Instagram and be like, oh hey, they're gonna be at Watermark on Tuesday at 5 p.m. or whatever.
I still expect you to show up sometime. It's not so far away.
Well, I mean, now that you've come to my home, I feel like it's got to happen, right?
Yeah, you don't have the excuse anymore.
It absolutely has to happen. So I think, so there was a milestone. There was a significant event where you got some publicity. I'm guessing it's from the local news outlets there in Michigan. I remember there was an article published, and I was like, we have to have Shelly on the show. I want to talk about this because this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any listeners who are published in newspapers or, so remind everyone again where that was published and tell me a little bit about it because I don't know, since I'm not familiar with the
Yeah, there have been 2 different articles written. Oh. One was by like a Southwest Michigan online magazine.
Okay.
That I couldn't even tell you that I could start to research here. No, you're catching me off guard, but
I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And the other one was a local newspaper. A reporter reached out to me and just asked if I'd be willing to be interviewed for an article for the paper. And she came out and observed one of our events with a photographer and took a couple of pictures. But that's the Herald Palladium is the name of the local newspaper.
But that means that people are talking about you.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Right? I mean, people who come out for the first time definitely say, well, I've been following you for a couple of months and I really wanted to try it. So it's really kind of neat the way that it's caught on. And we've definitely found, I mentioned this at the beginning, but really pulled some hardcore gamers out of the woodwork in the area too, who maybe didn't have a big group to play with before. So that's really cool too. So when you asked if we are the ones who are supplying the games, we do, but now it's, there's a few bags because
that's cool.
Yeah, because there are definitely some gamers who
because gamers have a tendency when they're going to an event. We talked a little bit about this last night offline as a family and in gaming. We were talking about it's like they're going to an event that has a games library or they're going to somebody's house. Oh, we were talking about you coming here and I was like, just bring this one game because we've got a collection, so there's no reason for you to bring a whole burden yourself with hundreds of pounds of games. I know some of our friends did it who went to the Gamers Ranch in Missouri last weekend and they brought a ton of games.
And they brought games to the Gamers Ranch.
Gamers Ranch has this huge library. It's like, you don't have to do that.
I know. I can't say that I don't do that. I mean, guilty.
Yeah.
But I do, and I said this last night, but I do think that there's some sort of impulse with people who are really deep in the hobby and they get together with somebody else who's really deep in the hobby and you think of the one game that this person hasn't played before that you're like, I am going to introduce your new favorite.
Right.
I can't believe you haven't played this game that's so dear to my heart. It's a part of me, right? So that just seems really important. But I love that we came here and you're just teaching me lots of games that I hadn't gotten a chance to play yet. So,
and for the record, awesome. I'm not teaching any of them. My wife's teaching them all.
Your wife is incredible.
She is. She is.
She is a smooth teacher.
She is very smooth teacher. Yeah. So what I've learned, I think both Katie and I learned this. Every time we go to a convention, whether it's as small as Geekway in St. Louis or as big as Gen Con in Indianapolis, we always we come back with games, either purchased or won in the play and win library or something like that. And I got tired of, I would have this huge bag and every gamer knows what I'm talking about. That it's 30, 40, 50 pounds of board games that you bring. Mm-hmm. One of them might hit the table.
It's true.
And then you're bringing more games back. So for me, if it's more than 5 pounds, we don't bring anything, right? Unless I know, right? We're going to be
unless you have a plan, right?
Right.
Like so-and-so wants me to bring this.
Yes.
We're going to play it.
Yeah. There's always the expectation that I either teach someone how to play Obsession or you get to play Obsession because I know Gareth and I have hundreds of episodes now talk about Obsession. And so I think it's kind of become a thing that people want to play Obsession with either Gareth or myself. He gets it in England all the time. They're like, you're bringing Obsession, right? They're at AirCon this weekend, and I'm pretty sure Obsession will hit the table there as well. Other than that, I typically don't bring anything. I think a couple of years ago, it was like Gen Con. That's all I brought was Obsession. And then I was like, and we hit the table, but then it was like, well, not anymore. Now everybody's got a copy, so I'm good. I'm good. I'm just I'll put it in my little backpack, and if it fits, then yeah.
It's good enough.
That's it.
Yep.
So now the pressure's off. Pressure's off. We got through all of it. Okay. We'll put the pressure back on me because it's my understanding that you have questions for me.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest question, right, is we've been talking about my game community, yes. My people, the way that my hobby looks for me.
Right.
You know, I do play 2-player with my husband a lot in addition to the game group. Game group a lot of times will end up playing maybe the 1 to 2 hour games at the longest. The heavier, weightier games stay home. We play 2-player.
Right.
But not everybody has a giant board game group of, you know, lots of people that you play with every week.
That's true.
You know, you're running events and all this. So I just, you know, I think to kind of contrast, I know you have a good game group yourself and you play lots. So I just wanted to hear about your community. Yeah. I don't know that I've really ever heard you talk too much about beyond, you know, playing with your wife. And I know that you play with other people, but tell us a little bit about your community.
I can do that. Thanks for asking. Yep. Pressure's back on me, guys. How about that? So there's a pretty vibrant, when we moved to Springfield, and this was 2016, 17, because Katie moved here first and I came several months later from Louisiana. There were, and I guess there still are, 3 local game stores, right? I mean, you've been here for 48 hours. This is not a big metropolitan. Springfield's not huge, but it supports three hobby game stores, and they're all different in their own ways. You have. She's been to Titan.
Yep.
So yeah, we made sure to make a visit there yesterday. And so Titan had a pretty vibrant. They had it every night. There was an open game night on Thursdays, right? Again, this is 2017, right? So Katie and I, we were like, well, let's go. But we didn't know what it was all about. So we brought Ticket to Ride, which was a game that we played a lot, like at the end of the day for work. And we're like, but it gets us out of the house or the apartment, because we were living in an apartment back then. And it was like, okay, so we went and we played. And that's where we met our friend Vincent. Vincent doesn't listen to the podcast often, but now I'm going to tell him that I'm talking about him. So I'm going to force him to listen to this one. Vincent was kind of like our first friend in Springfield. He just walked up to the table. I think we were playing the South Africa map for Ticket to Ride. He knew of Ticket to Ride, but he did not know there were all the maps that are out. And we're still friends with Vincent today. And then we got to know more and more people. And there were a lot of folks. COVID changed things, right?
You don't say.
Yeah, right? COVID changed things? What? So a couple of things happened. People they bought homes, or they reconfigured their homes and had their own play space. And so they started wanting to play games at their house, which I think is okay. I think, you know, we don't have a lot of board game cafes outside of major metropolitan American cities like New York and Chicago. We do have a lot of local game stores, right?
Right.
And they usually host an open game night, much like what you're doing back home. And so what'll happen is you'll outgrow it, right? Like we'll have our core little group of players and we'll just come over here. I don't even have to leave my house, right?
Right.
And they can
cheaper,
it's cheaper. I can have the snacks that I want.
I can wear my pajama pants, you know.
You could.
That's
you
okay
could if
too.
you wanted to.
Yep.
That would be acceptable. Just, you know, okay, right? I'm blushing for those who can't see. So what ended up happening was we had our little COVID bubble. There was a core group of us that were hanging out through COVID. We were role playing online, using Roll20 or Discord or whatever it was. And then when COVID ended, we got back together again. So there's myself and my wife, Katie. And then there's our friend David and Eric. And then Vincent kind of joined our group, and we meet every other weekend for various schedules, but it's every other weekend, right? We meet on Friday nights where we go to our friend Rich's house. Rich has a rather large basement. He's got one of those beautiful game tables. So Friday night is that, where Katie stays home, so she gets a break from me and she gets to relax with the cats and do whatever she likes to do. I game with the guys.
We don't know.
Right. I don't ask. And then
I do skip our local events once in a while, put the kiddo to bed, let the husband go, and I just, do my thing.
You need that, right?
It's kind of nice once in a while.
You do need that. Yeah. And I recognize that my wife needs that. And so, okay. And of course, I'm the crazy introvert who can't shut up. So there's a story that I have to tell you that happened to us yesterday, but I want to share with everyone, but I'll get back to that. So then on that subsequent every other Saturdays, David, Eric, and Vincent come over here, and we are in the middle of a 5-player Frosthaven campaign right now.
So you're talking once a week, every week?
No, right? Every other week. Every other Saturday, but then our group gets together.
But then every other Friday. So is it a Friday, Saturday back to back?
It is.
And then the next weekend.
It is. Correct. Correct. Yes. If I didn't make that clear, that
every weekend turns into a whole thing where you are.
Yeah. No. So it's this core group of 5 or 6 that we get together on a Friday, Saturday back to back. And then the rest of the time it's just Katie and I.
Yeah.
Now, Titan, as you saw, they recently expanded a year or so ago, and they've got beautiful storefront, and they've got a huge open gaming area with 2 private rooms for like tabletop role playing. A lot of D&D for high school kids. They really do a lot of that. They have puzzle nights, which has been wildly successful.
Yeah, I had never heard of that.
Yeah, it's like competitive speed puzzling.
I mean, I have seen speed puzzling online, but I've never seen a local place do that. I think that's such a cool draw for a different group of gamers.
And it brings gaming to a non-gaming crowd. They go for puzzles, and then they see the other products and start. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of our core gaming group.
Yeah.
Occasionally there's, one-offs. We have some friends in St. Louis, which is like an hour and a half away. So one of our friends who, she's single, she doesn't have a family, she lives in an apartment, so she'll come up here and spend the day.
Nice.
And then of course Laura, obsessed with board games, and her husband Ryan, Mr. Obsessed with board games. They live in the St. Louis area. A couple other gamers, and so we'll go and meet them we'll meet them for lunch and then miniature market and play games and things. So we've kind of got this, this St. Louis for like a full day. Every other Friday, Saturday weekend is our game group, core group here in Springfield. And there's so many others too, right? Like, you've got a lot of 40K Warhammer, which I don't do, but there's a big group and they do an event at Titan. So yeah, if I'm not playing with Katie, I'm playing with Katie, David, Eric, and Vincent, right? It's always, every once in a while, somebody can't make it. Sure, so so then we don't play Frosthaven, we play something else. Whenever Katie and I go to purchase a game, we look at the game and we're like, David's really going to love this, or David's really going to hate this, so maybe we don't want to get it. Or we're like, the guys are going to absolutely love this game.
Yeah.
And then occasionally there's a surprise. While I know it's not your favorite, not saying you don't like it, but not your favorite, Flip 7 by the OP Games, I didn't expect that. I had no expectation.
Sure.
They sent it to me so I could do a little review and post and drop them a hint in the podcast. I was like, okay, it's straightforward and simple. Pressure, sure. Take a card or don't. There's no skill. Holy cow.
It has caught on like wildfire. So you're saying your group really has really
like it. I think what they like.
My group does too, to be honest. Yeah. I think I'm the odd opinion out,
you are the odd opinion out.
There's just maybe not quite enough there for me. I need a little tiny bit of autonomy. Right. Yeah. I just don't feel like I have enough of a say in how things go for myself. Maybe this is speaking like I've played 3 times and I have lost so bad every time. Bad. Like, I mean, 0 points around.
I've lost quite a lot too. Yeah.
It does have a fun, draw to it.
I think because it's so accessible, you pick up the deck of cards and you play, and that's right.
Yeah.
Especially after a long day of Frosthaven.
It's nice.
Flip 7's a nice, yeah. It's just a nice turn the brain off and be like, can I get 7 cards?
Yeah.
And not repeat any of the cards. Yeah. So there you go. Right. Okay, so I want to tell the story. I'm gonna tell them.
I don't know what story you're telling yet.
No, but you will. Like, I think as soon as I start telling this story, you're gonna know. Okay, so this is back to that my wife, as an introvert, needs and deserves. My wife deserves time away from me occasionally, right? And to prove how extroverted I am and excited, when you first arrived, we were sitting in my living room and we were telling a story. And Katie started to tell the story, and I slid forward in my seat, interrupted her, and just took over the story, to which you stopped me. You remember the story, right?
Yes.
Because I do that, and I try to be good about that.
Yeah.
The podcast helps because I'm trying to maintain an interviewee without interrupting.
And it gives you an outlet, right?
It does.
To just, it
really does. Yeah. Although I will tell you, it's easier. It is easier when the person's sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
There's technology things too. Sometimes I worry that I sound like, right, that I'm talking over my co-host or my guest on the podcast. I worry that that's what it sounds like.
Right. Well, I think there's an inherent, like, that tiny bit of delay, right?
Yes.
With a web kind of
absolutely
mode for your podcast that is different when you're in person, and there's a little bit more of the nonverbal that you might not catch, when the other person is starting to talk, and there's maybe a little less issue with that. But
so this is cool. Thank you for that
welcome.
Much.
You're welcome. It's less scary for me when we're sitting next to each other, like we're just talking in real life, right? Instead of
because you're one of our like most dedicated listeners. I mean, I think you've been with us from the beginning.
Yeah.
If not the beginning.
Yeah. I knew you online and in person a little bit before you started the podcast. Right. So I've been listening since the beginning.
Yeah. And then we met in Origins a couple years ago. And I remember you staring at me, and you're putting a face to the voice for the first time. And it
is really weird, when you listen to somebody talk a lot in your ears by yourself. And then,
and then they're right there in front of you.
He sounds the same, right?
I'm real, guys.
It's true.
I'm not a figment of your imagination. So, yeah. So Shelly, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This was great. It's been a fun weekend.
Yeah, it took me a little while to, talk myself into doing this. Like I mentioned, I'm not as extroverted as you would think for somebody who started a board game community in my area. So
I completely agree. So, I would have expected you to be more extroverted. But I struggle with that, honestly.
My husband's the charming one. I just really like board games. Yes. And I've gotten really lucky that our group is just incredible people. They're just really wonderful. I mean, they've really turned into friends, so.
Right. And I've had the opportunity to meet a few of them. Shout out to Sean and Bill. I know that I met more of you, but that was so many years ago, and I'm trying to remember. But Sean and Bill really
2 Origins ago.
It was 2 Origins ago, and Origins is about to celebrate its 50th anniversary this year, so that's huge for them. So hopefully we'll get more listeners in Michigan and around the world, and that would be great. And once again, I do this every time, and y'all are getting tired of hearing me say this. Please, guys, like and subscribe to the channel and post a comment.
Subscribe button.
Thank you. I'm supposed to do all of this at the beginning of the episode, and it's like I'm sitting here talking.
If you're still here, smash that subscribe button.
Smash it. We need more followers and subscribers. And give us comments. If you have questions for Shelly, tell them where they can find you if they want to know more about how you created your community.
Yeah. I am Michiana Board Gamery. So as you can see on my shirt, I think it's backwards for you guys on YouTube, but Michiana Board Gamery on Instagram and Facebook.
No dots, no underscores, no spaces, right?
I think it is a dot. Well, on Facebook, you just Michiana Board Gamery is 2 words, but on Instagram, I do think there's a dot in between. But
so yeah, you can find her there.
Michiana is
yes,
a mashup of Michigan and Indiana, if that helps you with the spelling.
Yep, I didn't know that, right? Because
we're right at the border of Michigan and Indiana. I had to do it, right? I had to do it.
So for our international listeners and viewers, I know we picked up some viewers in India recently after episode 111. Paulgan, if you're listening, hey man, thanks for supporting. Keep watching the show. I know you may not be familiar, but the way that the state of Michigan is shaped looks like a mitten, right? And so you point on your palm where your town is from to say that this is Michigan. Yes. Is that right?
We're both backwards here for our YouTube. Yes, that's how we reference where we're from in Michigan.
So that's a thing, right?
This is now the most Midwestern goodbye sign off. I mean, any YouTube.
It's a Midwestern Meeple mania, and that's how we're going to do it, right? They're going to convert me. Y'all need to pray for me because this Cajun is going to become Midwestern, and I don't know how I feel about that. So, Shelly, thank you so much. Thank you for spending time with me.
Thank you for letting me share my story.
Absolutely. It's a great story, and thanks for sharing it with everyone. Everyone, please like and subscribe, and we're looking forward to hearing from you again. Thanks.